Test her out.
Hello, all, and welcome to a very special video gathering here. There was some big news that broke over the weekend. I was sitting in a parking lot in Aldi. I just bought some almond milk, gummy bears, and pancake mix. Yes, my life is very exciting.
Get on
And
with it.
I decided to check my phone, and what do I see? IBM is going to acquire Red Hat, cats and dogs sleeping together. This is it's weird. So I thought we needed to discuss this with the Gestalt IT crew. So sitting below me, I know which direction that is my usual co-host on the Gestalt IT Rundown, Tom Hollingsworth. Tom, thanks for making the time to be here.
Hi, Rich. Thanks for inviting me.
And to my wrong way. To my left, we have in the beautiful Hudson, Ohio offices, we of course have Stephen Foskett and the newest addition to the Gestalt IT team, Ken Nalbone. Ken and Stephen, thanks for being here.
He told me I have to. He's my boss.
You're already doing great, Ken.
Honestly, what we're trying to do is we're trying to emulate the IBM boss structure, and so I'm.
I don't see the reams of reports that Ken has to fill out yet to kind of just kill his spirit yet. I guess that'll come with time.
Yeah, there's a folder of them right here.
You're wrestling the papers.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get some initial reactions here on the scale of, oh, that makes sense, to, whoa, that's crazy. Where does this deal fall, Tom?
I think this falls squarely in the terms of IBM is literally gasping that last lunge out of the water before they drown under their own weight. And I think we're going to see a few bubbles on the surface, and then everything's just going to disappear.
If they are going underwater, does that mean they're pulling Red Hat down with them?
Pretty much.
Oh, poor Red Hat.
Stephen, Ken?
Ouch. You guys are mean. Honestly, I don't think it's like this at all. I think this is a logical business move, and I am a robot, and I think this makes sense. Sorry.
I don't know if it is desperate, but I don't know that it necessarily makes sense. I don't entirely get it yet. I'm not sure exactly what the value specifically for IBM is yet. There are so many projects within Red Hat. I'm not sure if there's one in particular they're eyeing or not, or if they just think, hey, Red Hat's cool, let's get them.
Well, clearly they see some sort of value in Red Hat because they're paying a huge premium. On Friday, the Red Hat stock closed at, like, I think $116, and IBM is going to be paying $190 per share, basically a $14 billion price premium over their stock close, and over 10 times what Red Hat's predicted 2019 sales are. So clearly, I've saw speculation that this is to fend off a rival bid. Do we think that IBM is actually going to close on this, given kind of this pretty substantial price premium, or is someone like Microsoft maybe going to be coming in and looking at this? I mean, they do love Linux now.
Well, that's the interesting aspect. So let me talk financials here for a second. So as you said, this is a substantial price premium over what Red Hat is trading at right now. However, this is only a small premium over their all-time high, or their 52-week high, at least. I don't know what their all-time. I didn't look back in the history, but 52-week high was about where it's trading right now, which is in the 170s. Mm-hmm. Interestingly, that's not the 190s, which is where IBM said that they're going to acquire them. So even as of now, the price has gone up. I mean, it's gone up about 50%, but it's not yet priced at the acquisition price, which, if you're going to read financial tea leaves, that could mean that this thing, that the market thinks this isn't going to happen, or it could mean that something else is going to happen, or I don't know what. But IBM's price is down, and Red Hat is not yet at the acquisition price.
I think this was designed to keep people out of trying to buy this. I mean, we all know that Larry Ellison has enough cash to go buy an island volcano layer or whatever he wants to do with it, and they would make a logical choice to fight this. I don't think Microsoft wants to be involved in this right now. Microsoft is growing their own cloud environment with Azure, and buying into Red Hat really doesn't make a lot of sense because there's too much competition up and down the line. I would look for more things that are synergy. And so that's why I think Microsoft's probably going to keep their hands out of this for the time being. And I think that the people behind the financing on this, who, by the way, stand to make a pretty penny because they financed almost all of the deal, they want this to close. They want this to be done so that they can start looking at IBM and the new combined conglomerate and trying to figure out how they can drive some value out of it.
Yeah, it's also important to remember that the GitHub acquisition just closed. And so Microsoft is actually busy chomping on a big Linux player as we speak.
Yeah, and they're already like playing damage control with with that community already. To buy Red Hat itself, I think the open source community would implode en masse. So, but let's level set here a little bit, because I think everyone hears IBM and they think they know what IBM is. But I kind of thought about it. I have no idea how IBM makes money, is a company. They make a lot of it. They make more they make like 5 times more in a quarter than Red Hat does in a year or something like that. I mean, billions and billions of dollars in revenue. They made a lot of noise recently about AI, about blockchain. Watson is, kind of their big PR push. How are they making money right now, and where does Red Hat kind of play into to making more of the monies?
I've got a thought there too. I've got a thought on everything. Yeah. Well, one of the big things is to know about IBM. Number one is that IBM is unlike, unlike how people would love it to be. IBM is very much a Wall Street company, and they're very focused on, profitability and margins and PE ratio and increasing stock price for shareholders and so on. I'm just looking at this right now. I mean, IBM, the PE ratio for IBM is 20. Which is solid. Frankly, it's better than Apple, but it's not tech. A lot of tech PEs are, much higher, 50x. I mean, Google is like 10,000x or so. I don't know. No, it's not really. But point is, Red Hat's PE ratio is 112, which means that Red Hat shares trade for 112 times earnings. Whereas IBM's only trade for 20 times earnings. And this is sort of a basic reflection of the market's approach to a company's profitability and long-term prospects. I think what IBM is really trying to do here is trying to focus on margins and what Wall Street's going to value. And I think they feel like they're going to be able to start getting a little bit better tech style margins by being a player in cloud and AI and Linux and so on, than they would get being the stodgy company that people think they are. Now, they've already been making moves into this for a long time, and this is already, showing. But I think that that's the real story here, is that IBM is trying to tap into some of that, Wall Street tech company goodness that they've been missing out on.
Yeah. And this is absolutely true, because if everybody out there listening right now, I want you to imagine what you think IBM does for a moment, and you're wrong. Unless you've just been in tech for the last 2 years. Because as I'm very fond of telling people, what you know as international business machines today is not Tom Watson's IBM. They don't make stuff anymore. Yeah, they still make mainframes, but that's legacy gear that they basically stopped iterating on in the 80s. Everything that you know about IBM today is really IBM Global Services, which is a service division that I used to work for as an intern back in 2001. So I'm a Gerstner IBMer. And Gerstner is the guy who literally grabbed the wheel of the ship and spun it around like a roulette wheel, and realized, thanks to Ben at Stratechery today for writing some of this stuff up, IBM Global Services kind of grew out of the shell that was IBM, because Lou Gerstner realized that people don't want to buy IBM stuff. They want to buy IBM's expertise to put that stuff in. And so as he started riding that ship and trying to pivot, I mean, IBM served as the roadmap for so many companies to divest themselves of the physical equipment that they made and try to get into the service organization. And IBM did it because they did it first. Now, go look at HPE and tell me if that was a successful shadow move. And I think I know what the answer to that question is. So what you see today is not your traditional IBM. And the fact that we're talking about things like cloud and blockchain should tell you that, because those are not things that IBM would have ever considered getting into 10 years ago.
Well, and so kind of getting into the press release that was announcing this, which, by the way, was kind of jump the gun. I know a lot of Red Hat employees were really surprised to find on a Sunday afternoon that they were getting acquired by IBM. But, it was all about hybrid cloud, right? That's the headline on every single blog out there that isn't really, kind of into the nuts and bolts of this is a hybrid cloud. IBM is saying, 80% of workloads are still not in the cloud. People are really just kind of doing at this more of they're proposing it, I think, as more of a lift and shift kind of move of just, renting some cheap compute capacity that's just happens to be in the cloud. And they're seeing a big opportunity there, and seeing that the hybrid landscape is not mature, and that with the acquisition of Red Hat, that poises them to really be a player in there. It almost read more to me in a lot of the press releases that were really talking about more of a multi-cloud kind of putting themselves as a multi-cloud kind of manager kind of situation. But regardless, with all this hybrid cloud hype kind of coming out of the announcement of this deal, how does this deal set up IBM to do anything or to be relevant in hybrid cloud?
You take that, Ken?
Geez, I don't know about that. They'll have a lot of products that they can decide to just not iterate on now that they'll own that Red Hat will bring to the table. Hopefully they actually do something with them rather than just kind of leave them, or maybe they just leave Red Hat alone to do their thing. I don't think they will, but I'm sure that a lot of people will hope that OpenShift continues to be developed the way that it is, and that Red Hat will have of course their own enterprise OS that has a very close partnership with CentOS or CentOS, depending on how you pronounce it, and then that relationship will continue. But that's not something that's really profitable for IBM, but it's something that's pretty much essential to the cloud community. I mean, what's the operating system of the internet? It's Linux. And what's the most popular enterprise distribution of Linux? It's Red Hat. And what's the one that people actually use because it's free if they don't want to pay Red Hat? It's CentOS.
Yeah. Well, also there's Kubernetes involved here, and I think that's one of the most insightful, I don't know, I want to say analysis, but mentions of this was actually from a surprising source. Last night or yesterday, I saw a post from Solomon from Docker, and his analysis of this, I think, is basically that Red Hat needed to get bought. It wasn't going to survive forever. The Kubernetes wave has lifted Red Hat really, really nicely, and Red Hat is selling at the top based on Kubernetes more than they are based on Linux.
Probably.
Of course, a wag might say, okay, Solomon, what does that say about Docker?
You had to go there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, but the funny thing is that I think most people in the industry, Stephen, they agreed somebody's going to buy Red Hat, because Red Hat is the darling of how do you make something free profitable. And Red Hat had a really good model. And how many times over the last 2 years have we heard, oh, well, they're like the Red Hat for insert open source software here. Mm-hmm. Docker, we're like the Red Hat for containers. So, I mean, I don't necessarily know that anybody out there, it's like seeing someone out there and going, that person is going to get snatched up. It's just a matter of time. The problem is nobody thought it was going to be IBM. I think most of the money was on Oracle, because Oracle's on a buying spree and they really, 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 really want to get into cloud, and they really, 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 really want to compete with AWS. And as sad as it sounds, even though Oracle Cloud is a distant fourth in a 3-horse race, IBM's cloud was still stuck in the starting blocks. And the fact that everybody just immediately assumes that Red Hat is going to supplant whatever IBM was working on should tell you how popular their cloud offering was. And I think that a lot of the analysis that we're seeing there today is, it's OpenShift with Kubernetes, and it's all running on top of somebody else's cloud with, whether it be AWS or Azure, is people realizing that they're going to basically try to vault themselves into a really big, complicated hybrid cloud race. And IBM Cloud's probably just going to wander off into the pasture and see you later.
Does this mean now that we're going to see a Super Bowl ad that says IBM Cloud powered by Red Hat? They got to spend that money somehow, right?
They do know how to make ads. Oh my gosh, did you see the ad during the World Series for IBM Watson? I mean, it's like the super high budget ads.
But that's the thing. That's IBM in a nutshell. Old IBM didn't know how to market their way out of a wet paper bag with a machete. I mean, Blue Lightning, OS2 Warp, Lotus Smart Suite. I mean, IBM had the best technology in the world that nobody ever knew about. They're literally the opposite of Google. Google buys a thing or makes a thing and then kills it 6 months later because they don't want to work on it. IBM buys a thing and then hides it from the rest of the world 6 months later because they don't know what to do with it. So yeah, maybe they're spending a whole bunch of money on trying to make all that money back from Watson, or maybe they're just using all the money that Watson won on Jeopardy in order to be able to fund these commercials. But the fact of the matter is that IBM is not a marketing company.
So 2 questions, though, to kind of follow up, because this kind of touches on a number of things. Is this acquisition kind of an indictment that, AI for enterprise is not a successful business strategy in 2018? And 2, is, obviously, I don't think this is going to be overnight, but is the IBM Red Hat, combination a long-term hedge maybe against an increasingly cozy VMware AWS partnership kind of deal?
First of all, people make way too much out of the AWS VMware partnership. There's no partnership. They're frenemies. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, basically at this point. And that's the reason why they keep expanding into AWS and Azure, because VMware understands that the enemy of my enemy is my friend too. And so they're cozying up to everybody who will take them right now, because they're trying to stave off this whole people are going directly into the cloud and using containers and things like that. As long as we can keep them on VMware a little while longer, we can pivot and try to figure this out. That's not what this is. This is IBM throwing the Hail Mary. So the problem is that there's risks and there's gambles. Microsoft buying GitHub was a risk. I can integrate GitHub's feature set into Microsoft and I can make money off of that. But if I crater this deal, I still have everything in the world to fall back on. I can still go back to Office. I can still go back to Windows. I can still go back to everything that Satya has been doing for the last few years, and it'll work. IBM made a gamble. If they blow this, and let's be fair, most of the community says they're going to blow this, this will be the end. There is no coming back from this. The shell of whatever's left of this will not be named IBM. It'll be Red Hat or whatever they end up calling the new thing. But that's the deal. IBM is making a huge gamble, and it had better pay off for Jenny Romedy, or she's going to find herself out on the unemployment line pretty quick.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Oh my gosh, Tom.
IBM's been screwing things up for a couple decades now, and they're still
yeah, but they're running out of server divisions to sell to cover those things. That's the deal. They've made up for all those screw-ups that they've had because they've sold off every bit of the assets they've got left. The only thing that they're really banking on is the mainframe business. And let's be fair, they really are the last buggy whip manufacturer when it comes to mainframes. And yes, those things are still making money because there's nothing else they can do but make money. But they don't make as much money as people think.
Just a few weeks ago, they were still very big fans of the IBM buggy whips.
Yeah. And I think that perhaps you're overstating it somewhat, Tom, but I mean, it is important to realize that this, I think this is the third or fourth largest corporate acquisition ever. I think this is the second or third largest technology acquisition ever.
Depending if you count the Broadcom kind of conglomeration, this is kind of the second biggest tech next to Dell EMC, and it's the biggest software acquisition, substantially over the $26.2 billion that Microsoft paid for LinkedIn, which is a very different type of acquisition.
Yeah. And GitHub was only it was below 8 billion. So I mean, pocket change. Is that it? It's nothing. It's nothing. But I mean, IBM has this money. That's the thing too. I mean, IBM they're gonna suspend share repurchases for a couple of years. They're definitely drawing on their finances, but they can do this. I mean, IBM's earnings are still very, very solid. The company is making money. The company absolutely has lots of different businesses that they're involved in. Mainframe, but I think it's unfair really to say that IBM is some dinosaur throwing a Hail Mary pass here. I mean, I'll take the opposite point there, Tom. I feel like this is an important acquisition. It's a big acquisition, but I don't think it's necessarily like the Hail Mary from IBM. I think that what they're doing here is they're making a big strategic move, and one that could really establish them in the market, kind of like, Microsoft buying GitHub or, Dell and EMC or something like that. But I think IBM could survive this. And I think that, the next thing we should talk about is what is it going to look like? What is a future Red BM or iHat going to look like?
Well, yeah. I'm sorry, Tom.
According to the press release, Red Hat will exist inside of IBM's hybrid cloud business organization as a separate operating entity that, I kind of imagine it's kind of like Cisco Meraki, where they're allowed to do their thing, but they kind of exist underneath the IBM corporate structure. The head of Red Hat will actually join as an SVP under Jenny Romedy. But you've also heard the insiders talking about how there are a bunch of IBM execs that are eyeing this thing like a Thanksgiving turkey, and they're already looking at all the pieces they want to carve off for their own little fiefdom. And as long as some corporate America businesses, and this is typically true of the older businesses, still are driven by headcount equals power, they're going to split this up eventually because they want that headcount to feel more important inside of the organization. Oh, well, I got the Ansible piece. Oh, well, I got the Red Hat Enterprise Linux piece. Oh, I got the services division. There's a lot of there's a lot of Red Hat that looks very appealing to some people inside of the organization.
And it's going to goose the numbers of each of those organizations. I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not just people, but it's also, and it's not just revenue. Remember, it's margin. And I think that this is, yeah, absolutely. IBM managers have got to be looking at this thinking, oh my gosh, my numbers are going to look so good next year, because they'll get extra revenue. They'll get a much better margins. And I think that that's really what's going to, drive the feasting internally. Now, unfortunately, that's probably not what should happen. What should happen is that, IBM should allow Red Hat to exist as an independent entity and continue to exist as an entity inside the company. They should basically make it a pirate division. And for that, I'm going to go back to Oracle. As we just were, for Tech Field Day, we were at Oracle Cloud. And I think it's important to know that inside Oracle, the cloud group is kind of a pirate group. I mean, they're definitely taking inspiration from Steve Jobs and the Macintosh people and all that. They don't literally have a pirate flag, but they do have a ship. But the idea is that they are doing their thing and not being interfered with by the rest of the company. And frankly, that's really what Oracle needs to do to be relevant in cloud. And, I don't want to say that it's working. I don't want to say that it's going to work. Maybe it will, but I think it's irrefutable to say that that's the right move. So if IBM can do that, that would be fantastic. Do you think they're going to?
No.
Well,
no,
so okay, that was kind of my next
Rich.
question. Let me just set up this next question. So, Stephen, you kind of answered my next question. What does a successful IBM Red Hat post acquisition look like? And I guess the follow on to that is, within 5 years, how will we look at this acquisition? Is this going to be like an AOL Time Warner, just horrific, failure? Is this going to be something that, okay, IBM's kind of in the same spot they are today, where they make a ton of money. No one still knows what they do, what they really do. They have a bunch of science projects out there that they're hoping they'll still catch on. Or is this is this wildly successful and to become, a top 3, kind of hybrid cloud provider?
All right, so I'll start this. The most perfect possible solution, as Stephen elucidated, is for IBM to let Red Hat exist on its own. I would say look at Dell EMC versus VMware. VMware, even though it reports into Dell EMC structure, it used to be part of the EMC Federation, they are basically running their own business. They just send the checks back to Austin. If they do that, if they let Red Hat chart their own course, pull on the resources of the company as needed to leverage, hybrid cloud deployment models, blah, 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 this will work out perfectly fine. And everybody will say in 5 years that this was great. You did an awesome job of making this happen. That's not going to happen. Unfortunately, as we've discussed, this is IBM's management team looking at this like a golden goose, juice the margins, make things look great. Quarterly bonuses look awesome for the next 5 quarters or so, but then you've got to do something with it. You've got to make this last past the honeymoon period, which means you're going to have to pour resources in there, which they evidently do, but you have to give them the freedom to develop and iterate on their own and fight this battle, because right now AWS is the 805-pound gorilla and Azure is like the 450-pound gorilla that's looking at the crown. If you cannot figure out how to beat those guys, your business will go bananas.
And bananas. Analogy.
And so how long have you been sitting on that one?
And so Google Cloud, I don't know, Google is, not even a gorilla.
Yeah, Google is a chimp
has a lot of bananas.
No, that's actually that's a good analogy, because Google Cloud is a chimp. It's sitting over on the anthill with a stick digging around, because it's using their tools to do something that's not quite competing against what the other people are doing, but it's going to get their own kind of return on investment. And just like Google, when the stick breaks off in the anthill, they're just going to walk away from it.
And then you've got IBM on the outside watching them all, trying to figure out how to get in there and steal a banana without any of them catching them. And
so in this simile, is Oracle Cloud like a prosimian that has like weird scent glands in its hands? I don't know. I could get really deep into this analogy. Ken, can you answer my success? What does a successful acquisition look like, and where do we see this in 5 years?
The most successful acquisition is the picture that Tom painted that won't happen, of them leaving Red Hat alone. I'm not as pessimistic as Tom about what's going to happen. If they're going to crater them, I don't think it's going to go that poorly. Most likely they manage to actually integrate some of Red Hat's offerings into their own without completely destroying them. But after a while, you know, they're either going to shut down portions of it or sell it off or whatever it may be. And we won't see the same Red Hat emerge on the other side of this in a few years. Part of it will be within IBM. Part of it will be back doing its own thing. Which parts are which, I'm not sure yet.
And Stephen, 5 years, where do we see this?
I would like to say that in 5 years, we see this as a transformed company like Satya's Microsoft. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I mean, there we go, Tom. Absolutely. I mean, that should be the goal. And if I could write an open letter to IBM, that's what it would say. It would say, you know, you need to pivot. And unfortunately, that hasn't happened much. I mean, if you look in the history of companies able to pivot, and IBM, frankly, has pivoted. You know, they are I mean, remember, I mean, they used to make like typewriters and stuff. And then they made like, you know, I mean, they got the mainframe business and they challenged many computers and they survived in the software world. And here they are in cloud and pushing AI, services. IBM has amazingly steered this thing, but I don't know. I think they've like kind of, they're like, driving a semi truck through like an obstacle course and, they clipped a couple cones. They're not sideways on the side of the road, but they've steered it, but they haven't Nadella or Steve Jobs steered it.
If you keep carrying on with that semi truck analogy, I guess they've avoided jackknifing. There are those trucks that you see on this on the interstate, and you're never sure what they're delivering and where they're delivering it to. You ever see CR England out there? They have the weirdest routes. I have no idea what they're in the business of, but they're out there and they continue. And IBM's much the same way. They don't have one singular vision of what they are and what they do, and nobody is sure what that is. And I don't see that changing with this acquisition.
Yeah, back to Tom's comment at the beginning. What you think you know about IBM's business is wrong. That's not what they do.
But that's probably true of a lot of employees within IBM itself.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah. So to answer the core question, how do I see this thing playing out? I am a bit optimistic about it. Red Hat has a great company culture. It's got great products, great prospects. If they can avoid the feasting on the bones scenario that was laid out earlier, if they can hold this thing together, and most importantly, if they can hold the business model together, I think we could end up with IBM having relevance again. And I see this as, in terms of the relevance scale, I see this as somewhere above Oracle in terms of modern data center relevance, somewhere above Oracle, but below NetApp. I mean, kind of like, we're getting there. We've got this thing. We kind of did it. I think that's, and I think that honestly would be just a blazing success for IBM. Because that's the other thing. I mean, I think a lot of companies still are buying IBM and would buy Red Hat services knowing that Red Hat is IBM. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think they can grow revenue. I think, if this thing works, if they can keep it together, I think they could grow revenue. I think they could build a successful business, and I think they can double or triple Red Hat's revenues if they can hold it together. I'm just not sure they can hold it together.
So before we, kind of finish up, I think we've kind of reached the natural conclusion of this discussion for now. I'm sure there'll be more twists and turns as the wheels of acquisition go forward. But I think there's a lot of negativity out there, Tom. I think you're echoing some of that within our community, within the Tech Field Day community, and even amongst, I've been seeing a number of negative reports of Red Hat employees kind of dreading this. Again, being kind of surprised by the news. Maybe not fair to question them like the same day, but can we leave maybe with just a sentence or two of hope for everyone out there that thinks Red Hat immediately is going to die a fiery death?
I think that the biggest hope that you've got here is that Jim Whitehurst is moving in as an SVP. I think that if Red Hat can infect IBM with a little bit of their corporate culture and make IBM see the value of the way that Red Hat's been doing business, kind of transforming the old man into somebody who kind of gets it and understands why we're doing it. I think that that's Red Hat's best vision going forward, is to kind of, you know, revolutionize one of the oldest tech companies that there is.
All right. Well, I don't think we can get any better than that. So for more, you know, kind of breaking news coverage like this, you can check us out on gestaltit.com. You can also check out our weekly news show that runs live on Facebook at 12:30 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday, the Gestalt IT Rundown. There's a combination of two of the four of us usually on there, so you can check that out. And that is loads of fun. That gets you in and out in about 20 minutes. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Anthropology. Tom, can you plug where people can find more of your good stuff?
Sure. You can check me out on Twitter as Networking Nerd, and you can check out my blog at networkingnerd.net and also my writings at gestaltit.com.
Ken, where can people find more of your great stuff?
You can find me on Twitter at Ken Nalbone. Also my blog, fullstackkengineer.com, and probably soon to be blogging at gestaltit.com as well.
And Mr. Foskett.
Roger. You can find me at sfoskett on the Twitters. You can find me at blog.foskets.net and at gestaltit.com.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks everybody for having this discussion. I hope our viewers enjoyed it. So until next time we meet, remember everybody, have a super sparkly day.